everyone. Today I am going to speak on a subject matter that I'm sure is a thorn in just about every taxpayer's side. That's right, you guessed it, audits. Now, what is an audit? Well, as one of the online web dictionaries defines it, it's an impartial scrutiny of a corporate or an individual tax return to check for its accuracy. Now, before I go into discussing matters about the audit, let me just mention that a good way to avoid an audit is to err on the side of caution rather than not. So, let's talk about the three main types of audits that the IRS deals with. Yes, there are three. You have the correspondence audit. You have the office visit audit. And then you have the field audit. The correspondence audit is the least trying, if you will, of all the audits. Basically, what that is the IRS mails you a document, mails you a notice stating that you need to send in some additional information, correspondence. That's what the correspondence audit is. The office visit audit is when you have to go in to the IRS office and take certain documentation with you and discuss matters with them there at their office. And then there's that lovely field audit. In all actuality, it's really not lovely because that's probably the worst type of audit that you can deal with the IRS. Why? Because when they do a field audit, they come to you. They come to your location. They get a chance to see more documents and ask more questions. For those of you who are sports fanatics, or you don't even have to be a sports fanatic to know these terms, there's the home court advantage, and then there's the home field advantage. And they use those terms for teams who play on their home courts or home fields and say, well, okay, they're on their own turf. They have the advantage, and they're probably going to win the game because they know the field, they know the court, etc. Well, that's not necessarily the case when it comes to home court or home field advantage with field audits. Actually, it's quite the opposite. So if at all possible, if you're being audited, either request that you go to them or you mail the documentation in. But of course, if they have to come to your location, then they have to come to your location. But you do want to try to avoid a field audit if at all possible. Now, what are some of the reasons or causes for audits? Well, the IRS will not admit this, but in my opinion, they have a certain quota to meet every year. They have to audit so many returns. Again, that's just my opinion. That's not fact, but sometimes they'll just randomly pick returns for audits. So if you're being audited, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done anything wrong or that you're in trouble. It's just that they decided to pick your return, to do an audit on. But now you do have those audits who rightfully so should be audited. Um, and one of the things that the IRS has started doing is auditing more Schedule C income audits or returns than regular returns. Why? Because there seems to be a practice with sole proprietors or independent contractors. They tend to pad their expenses and reduce their income. Well, to all of you who are Schedule C filers, the IRS has gotten wind of this, and they're untapped with checking these returns out, and they look at these types of returns more closely than they would a regular return. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to err on the side of caution, which means that if you're going to pad your expenses, pad them within a reasonable range. And no, I'm not condoning that you pad your expenses. I'm just saying that if you do, make sure that you're padding them conservatively and not ridiculously, like some returns that I've seen. Now, if you're being audited, you can call the IRS to request a face-to-face informal meeting with an IRS supervisor to see if you can get things straightened out that way. If you cannot, or if you do not feel comfortable, or if you do not feel that anything has been accomplished by having a meeting with an IRS representative, you can request an appeal. And to do that, the instructions for requesting an appeal is in Publication 5. Also, when requesting an appeal conference, a written protest must accompany it unless you are requesting a small case consideration, which means that the taxes are $25 or less in a year. You can find out more information about the written protest and how to submit it in Publication 5 as well. Now, if after you've appealed the IRS's decision and you're still not happy, the next step would be tax court. You can also read about the procedures for tax court in Publication 5. Please note that if you file a frivolous or basically bogus claim in tax court and it's found to be frivolous, you could be fined up to $25,000. So think about that before filing bogus tax court claims. Now, some of the publications that you can refer to if you're dealing with an audit or if you want to know what the appeal procedures are. These publications are as follows. There's Publication 1, which is Taxpayers' Rights. Publication 5, Appeals Rights. Publication 556, its examination of appeals, and there's the publication 1660, 1660. That's collections appeals rights. All of these documents should assist you in proceeding with an appeal and answer some of the questions that you have regarding the appeal process and how it works. Now, when you're dealing with an audit, it's not necessarily to retain professional assistance. In some cases, you can deal with the audit matter yourself, but in some cases you cannot. And that is when you want to retain the services of a reputable professional tax professional. If you cannot afford the services of a tax professional, there is a program called the Tax Advocate Program. This program offers services for free to those who qualify, who need help with dealing with the IRS. Now, there are some guidelines before the IRS will take your case, not the IRS, before the tax advocate will take your case. There are some guidelines that need to be met. So, again, if you're dealing with an audit, refer to publications 1, publication 5, publication 556, and publication 1660, 1660. Before I conclude this video, I want to mention that if you have tax questions, you can Google my username, tax.appeal.168. Again, that's tax.appeal.168. I have answered many, many questions for individuals, and you will find answers if you Google tax.appeal.168. I also have a website where you will find audio downloads of various tax topics. My website address is www.audiotaxhelp.com. That's www.audiotaxhelp.com. In addition to a wide variety of tax information, if you click the tax trivia link on that site, you will also find information about how our lovely tax system came into play. And you can also read about the Federal Reserve System. So again, that's www.audiotaxhelp.com. Well, this concludes my discussion on audits. And I do hope that you've had the opportunity to view my other tax-related videos, and I hope that they've been helpful to you, as I hope this one has been helpful to you. Well, thank you again, and remember, my goal is to help you make your life a little less taxing.